Welcome to the podcast Running Toward. This podcast tells stories of ordinary people who couldn't look away once they saw the hidden crisis in foster care and the families impacted. Our guests share heartbreak that led them to take reluctant and unexpected small, faithful steps toward the most vulnerable in their communities. Not because they had a plan, and not because they felt ready, but because they couldn't unsee their pain. You'll hear how people living normal lives discover that getting closer changed them. Their comfort mattered less, their grip on uncertainty faded, and their faith got feet in quiet, everyday ways. Ending the crisis for one or for all isn't a quick fix. It's a long, slow, often messy journey alongside one of the most overlooked and misunderstood groups in our community. Running Toward gives you a front row seat to the hidden crisis in foster care and the families impacted, and to the ordinary people who choose not to look away. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Running Toward. Thank you for joining us. Today I get to interview one of my really good friends, Marin Baker, and get to hear her crazy story and what she used to call me, her crazy foster friend. But from international adoption to foster care to changing her whole career path and becoming a caseworker, case manager, and all the things. So today's episode is going to be fun, and I'm glad that you joined us. So welcome. Thanks for coming and being willing to share your story with us.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us, what is a typical day in the Baker household these days?
Depends on the day, that's for sure. My husband is a full-time firefighter, so he's gone for 48 hours at a time, and then he comes home for 96. So it depends on the day.
Yeah.
And then I have a senior in high school this year. Yeah,
It's a hard year. That's your first senior too.
I know.
It doesn't get any easier.
I keep calling you for all the things.
Uh-huh.
And then I have a freshman daughter. And then our youngest is 12, Mr. JJ, who we adopted.
He's famous.
He's
famous all around the land.
So 12 years old. Developmentally, we're about 6-ish or so, give or take. So, you know, depending on his emotional state, depends on what's going on in the house.
Right. Yes. We're all fans of your whole family, but JJ is especially, he just lights up every room. That kid, he's awesome.
He's pretty miraculous.
So let's go back before foster care ever entered your life. Your college, dating, newly married. Take me back there. What were we planning? What was life like? What were your aspirations?
Yeah, we got married young. Aaron and I did. He was already working full-time as a firefighter. I was still in college going to school for physical therapy.
There you go.
As you, my friend.
Yes.
And then we had the plan I was going to graduate, and we had Faith, actually, our oldest, right before I graduated college. And then had another daughter, and we were both working, and things were good and great. And then out of nowhere, it seemed like, the Lord kind of turned some things around and started putting adoption on my heart. And
so it had been any of your thought process before then?
Never.
Not like as young, I'm going to adopt one day.
Oh, no. Yeah. No, never. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had the family of 4, and things were easy.
Yeah. Red, white picket fence.
Yeah.
Check the box.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Same. So how does God start opening that, like kind of throwing that little hint down at you, like, hey?
Yeah, we had another really good friend that had started the international adoption process. And so we were walking with her through that and praying with them, that family. And then, golly, I don't know, a few months, maybe a year into their journey, I started feeling this nudge from the Lord that was going to be a part of our story. There was one day, very, very clearly, he said that adoption was going to be part of your story. It's funny, though, like looking back, he never said what kind of adoption.
See?
So, yeah, I thought I had it all figured out. Oh. And so, we just go into it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so international adoption. I was going to ask you, where's Aaron at this point?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. Very not for it, I shall say. Yes, not for it. He thought I was crazy. When I came to him and said, hey, the Lord put something on my heart. I just kind of want to bring this up. And he was cooking dinner. Remember, he paused and turned and just kind of like laughed, like, you're joking,
that was
right?
A joke, right?
Yeah. Like you've got to be kidding. And so But I knew without the shadow of a doubt that the Lord had spoke that to me. And so I remember telling him, I said, well, the Lord's either going to change your heart or he's going to change mine. But I don't think he's changing mine.
So we'll just wait for him to change yours.
And you know what? In less than 24 hours later, we came back together and he said, it is everywhere. Like I'm seeing like scriptures downloaded and words spoken and I think we're supposed to do this. It's like, see.
However, praying wife, y'all. That's what happened.
Yeah. It was
I
pretty
love
great.
our husband's stories, precious guys. We were like, hey, this is what we're doing. And they're like, wait, what?
Hold on. Yeah.
This is not what I signed up for.
Yep. Yes. Yeah.
So international. You have a friend, you're walking with them. God's like, hey, you're going to adopt. And you heard, I'm going to adopt internationally.
Because it's safe. And there's,
they don't have trauma when they come from overseas.
That's what everybody seems to think. And that's naively what I thought too.
Huh.
And I thought, if 1 + 1 = 2. So if I do, A, B, and C, then clearly we're going to get to D. So we chose international adoption. We didn't really know anything about foster care at the time. We really thought, that was just crazy. Nobody talked about it.
Right.
And so it seemed really scary and this like fearful thing. And so we chose international adoption. I'm laughing now because it's just so funny because you can
so
see.
Much safer. So much.
Yes. We thought it was going to be safe and dependable and predictable. And we flew through the process, did all the paperwork, did all the home study, the psychological evaluations, all the things, paid quite a bit of money. And then got a phone call one day saying, I am so sorry, but the country you've chosen has decided to deny you the chance to adopt because a few reasons, but primarily was because we had biological children. And so they said they were going to, reserve their children in their country for other families that struggled with fertility. But then the next big thing was, they said you can continue the process if you want to adopt a child with special needs. And my husband and I were like, whoa, like we are not qualified for that. That's not what we're thinking. And then the next day, the country shut down to any American who was trying to adopt from them. So
what do you think when you were choosing international versus, that whole thing, foster care? What were you trying to protect? What did you think you were protecting by going to international adoption?
So we didn't really know anything about foster care. So all we knew was what the media had told us, that, and that cliche saying that I can't make fun of anybody for saying it because I said it myself, like I could never love them and let them go.
Right.
Oh my gosh, what about, you attach to them and then all of a sudden they're gone. You have no control over where this child goes. Funny, joke's on us. Like we don't even have control over our own biological children.
Because we've done so well controlling the lives of our teenagers.
Yeah. So trying to control, I guess, that like the predictability of once this child comes to us, this child will stay with us.
Yeah.
That was the safe route that I think Aaron and I were trying to go towards. So
the country closes. Then what? You're like, okay, well, we're off the hook. We're not adopting.
Yep. I remember Aaron came home and we cried and we prayed together. And again, I'm telling you, it's funny how looking back, like the Lord has been, he's just woven through it out, all of it. Because then less than 24 hours later, both Aaron and I are like, hey, I think maybe we should call my crazy friend, Jennifer Smith, because months beforehand, when we were still in the process to adopt internationally, I don't know if you remember this, but I think we were at the zoo. We were at a field trip for our preschoolers and I hadn't ever met you. And you came up to me and you said, hey, my parents know your in-laws. We all go to church together and they said you're in the process to adopt, but you're doing international adoption and like, just wanted to let you know that there's kids here in your back. Like there's kids here too that need homes. And I was like, yeah, haha. Like that's so scary. I don't know. And so both of us were like, yeah, let's call Jennifer. And so the next step was calling you.
So what was that like calling? What was the need? Why were you calling me? Like, what was that innate in you? You were like, I have questions.
Yep. Because foster care was scary because we didn't know anything about it. Like I said, other than what the media had told us, where biological family shows up at your doorstep or
they take the kids
back. Yes. Or they place you with quite a bit older kids that you have no idea the history. Anyways, all the things. And so I called you just to kind of get intro, like dip the toe in the water to see what is this thing called foster care. And we talked for a long time. I asked you probably 100 questions.
Yeah.
Yep. And you were so patient and you answered all of them.
It's great. I love it. Those are the best conversations. I mean, you've gotten to have those now. They're the best.
It's
just
cool.
watching people like wrestle with all the things that they were.
It was so cool too, because we had, like, I can't stress out it. Like, we just didn't know. We had no idea.
Yeah.
It is literally in our backyard. So, yeah.
Yeah. So when you start talking about foster care, you and I meet, then you go back and tell Aaron. Is Aaron like, yeah, we should pivot to foster care? Or is he like, let's pick a new country? Like,
not gonna lie, we did go back to the country list and start looking at countries, different countries. But after you and I talked, then you gave me your contact at the agency that you guys were working with. And so he said, okay, well, I guess let's just do like the next step. Let's just call her and see.
Right.
Like, surely she's gonna, say something that's going to turn us away from it.
Right.
But I called and spoke to her, and she was just this gem of a human being, much like yourself. And she answered all of my questions, and I'm sure she had probably 10 million other things that she needed to be doing. But she sat with me for about an hour on the phone and walked with me through all kinds of things. And before I hung up the phone, I had signed us up to start attending the pre-service training classes. So
we have talked about Linda on here before.
Okay.
Yeah. Beth Ann and me. And yeah, and I think that's that's why I do love doing these podcasts, because I feel like that's the kind of the moment that for a lot of people, that's like the final hurdle to where then they start doing something, is they need to have a conversation. And so I'm hoping that, us being it's like everybody gets to have coffee with 10, 20 of us and like hear stories and get, at least get a little behind the curtains view of foster care, because that was what Linda was for both of us and many more people. And the reason that so many of us ended up in this space, because she took 45 minutes, an hour to talk us off the ledge of all the things that we were telling her we could not do. And then we sign up for classes, and then she, wow.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So you go into classes. What happens at that first class?
Yep. We go into class, and Linda has this way. She just had this like beautiful way of speaking with such truth and grace and patience, but like heart.
Gutting you.
Yes. Like just this truth that you will never be the same. I don't know how anybody could be the same after hearing.
Her close rate must have just been off the charts.
It had to be. Yes. Like the amount of families that had to go through because of her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we go and we sit through the class, it's that orientation kind of intro 101 to foster care. And she starts sharing kind of what it looks like and so many things. But one of the funniest things is when she's talking about, like you go through the training classes and the requirements, and then you select kind of the age range and gender, what you think is going to fit great for your family. And Aaron and I were like, taken aback, and we both looked at each other. We were like, we get to pick? Like, we get to say what ages? Because that's not a thing, really, in the international adoption world. And so, yeah. And then she did that, kind of walked us through what it would look like to get licensed. And then when she turned the corner into what it looked like to actually be a licensed foster home, and she started sharing some of the stories about the children she had, and it's going to make me emotional. I told you I was going to do this. But when she started sharing some of the stories about the children she had in her home, like Aaron and I left, and I think we were quiet some of the ride home, and but also like we were so on fire. Like we started.
They'll make you run through a wall.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that night we ran through walls. Like I gathered as much of the paperwork as I could. She had a folder you would come back and turn things in the next day for class, and I walked in with like my own binder filled with stuff, and she was like, "Oh." Like, you're not messing around. And I was like, we're doing this. Yeah.
Yeah. Linda is she is a force to be reckoned with in the foster space. So you guys go through classes, you make your selections. Do you remember what was your first thing, like 0 to 5, or what was your?
So we were going to do, I have always loved the newborn phase.
Yeah.
Aaron has always wanted past the newborn phase. And so we had compromised. We come to a compromise. I think we had said like ages 2 to 5.
Yeah.
And that night we went into the office to sign our contract or whatever it was, our verification certificate, whatever it is you sign. At the last minute, Aaron says, you know what? I think the Lord's saying like 0 to 5 is fine. That let's just do it.
Yeah.
And so Linda was like, okay. And she pivoted really quick and reprinted the new thing and changed everything up. So 0 to 5 was our range.
So what were your conversations with your girls like? Because they were how old at this point?
6 and 3, I believe.
Yeah.
6 and 3. So we started talking about it. The concept of international adoption was much easier to talk about with your 5-year-old or your 6-year-old. The concept, this like abstract idea of foster care, that was a really big challenge. And so I remember talking to you about it because you had children kind of similar ages and a little bit older. So you had already walked through it. Like your kids were a little bit older. And so, talked to them about it. And as they got older in their developmental, like they started asking more questions. And so the conversation kind of grew with it. But I think originally we started just by explaining, hey, there's some children in the area that for whatever reason, it's not safe for them to live at home with the mom, with their mom and dad. And so we're just going to wait for a phone call and say, like, we're going to open up our home.
Yeah.
And, all the questions, well, how long are they going to stay? Is it going to be a boy or a girl? And why can't they be at home? And so navigated those the best we could. And we just said, we are going to love on them for as long as we can until, and we're going to pray that biological parents, that it becomes a safe place and they're able to go home. But yeah, it was a lot of questions and a lot of just really very challenging.
Yeah, we always joke in our family because you look back and like siblings that are in foster care, like they're just different in great ways, but also like the way they play. I remember my kids played caseworker. Like they had the folder and the baby and they drop them off at this door. And I was like, this is so a different childhood. It just is a different childhood.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And there's a quote that you have said that I've listened to you in many info meetings, and I say it almost now every time that I teach or share with people, is that foster care, because I think, too, a lot of people are afraid to foster because they're afraid of what it's going to do, to affect their biological children, or, if, say like forever children, because maybe it's a family that has other, domestic adopted or internationally adopted. Anyways, but this quote that you said is that walking through foster care, that has taught your children compassion in a world that it is incredibly hard to teach compassion to children in.
Yeah.
And so they view their whole world is viewed differently.
Completely different lens. Mm-hmm. They know that not all kids have moms and dads that love them and take care of them and feed them, much less buy them the latest whatever that is that they need to have. Yeah. So you guys get licensed. I was going to ask something else, but it'll come back to me. So how long's the wait? When do you get the first phone call? What does that look like? We got,
I think 1 or 2 other phone calls, like one within, I think 3 days, another one within 6 days. We weren't chosen for either one of them. And then one day, it was 2 weeks, 2 weeks to the day after we were licensed, we got a phone call and said, hey, you've already been chosen. You've been chosen because we had given them, specific parameters, like go ahead and just submit the home study if this comes through. And they said, you were chosen for a 5-day-old baby boy and he needs to be picked up in the next 4 hours. So it was like preschool pickup time and kindergarten pickup time.
Right.
And luckily had a village and family members to kind of help pick up other kids. And yeah.
So that was my other question. What was your family thinking during this, you guys, maybe they were like, yay, international adoption, because that's safe and we're on board with that. And then you guys pivot them to foster care. Are they like, yay, foster care? Are they like, what the heck? What am I doing?
I think I was going to say a little bit of both. I don't know. There were a lot of questions. And at one point somebody said, you don't want to just have more kids?
Right.
Like biological kids? That's safer. I'm like, yeah, that's not what the Lord's calling us to.
And also, actually not so much safer.
Also not so much safer. Yeah, exactly. But they had questions. And so we were all kind of learning together. And one thing I learned too is that, just because Aaron and I had this really strong conviction and we knew that the Lord was calling us to this roller coaster, our family was just kind of thrust onto the roller coaster.
You kind of sign them up and they don't actually sign anything. But you're like, hey, this is what we're doing. So,
yeah, but they, it was much like us, like kind of that learning curve. But once they learned a little bit more about it, it became everybody, they were all in. Yeah. They were all in. And so it was really cool to see like their eyes be opened.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I know now you have, and we'll get to it, you have extensive experience in the system, but in those early days, you get a placement. What is that? What shocked you most about the system as you start fostering and seeing how all that plays out?
Yeah, we didn't really know much other than, the time of like the court, we're going to have court every couple months. And so we get the call, we go and pick him up from the hospital, we come home. Also, we get the phone call when they say a 5-day-old baby boy, he has no exposure to drugs or alcohol, and we're anticipating mom, she's going to relinquish her rights in the next 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
But we didn't know any different. And so we're like, oh my gosh, like this is, we're moving into the next, this is amazing. And the Lord has protected us, we still get to go the safe route.
Right.
Like, haha, joke's on me. But I think it's what we probably would have said yes anyways, but it was like that little tidbit of information. And that is what got us to take the next step.
Yeah.
I think if we would have known the whole picture, we would have.
Oh, for all things.
Right.
Literally all things.
Yeah.
So the Lord is so wise and like, you can only handle this much. This is all I'm giving you.
Yep. So we get him home and I don't know if it's the next day or a few days later, a new caseworker calls and says, hey, I was just given your case. It was supposed to be so-and-so, but now it's me. And we have court in, 5 days and we need to set up a visitation. Biological mom is really antsy to start working services. And I was like, working services? What does that mean? Yeah. So, and then things just completely pivoted and we had to learn crash course on the system.
Yeah. That is another one of, there's so many themes and I just love it. I should put it all together at some point, but like pivots, like, okay. We're going to go this way. Okay, now we're going this. Oh, no. Oh, we're going to go. Like, it's just constant. And if you are not a person who is willing to keep, either you're gritty enough to keep doing it or you kind of have that death grip on control, this will either fix it or expose it. There's just really no in between.
Oh, that's good. It will either fix it or expose it.
Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah.
So you guys get little man and you're getting used to the system, the things that they told you, not playing out that way, and maybe not going to adopt. Maybe mom is going to reunify. What are the conversations in your house, you and Aaron? Are you guarding your heart? Are you full sending it on loving this little guy? What are you doing?
We full sended. There was no going. I don't know how people, I don't know. We just full sent. He was very much a part of the family and we, we're going every single week. I'm going every single week and we have an hour visit with mom and then an hour visit with dad. And that was also a big learning curve too, because biological parents were involved in some scary, dangerous things that I still don't know all the details of. So we weren't allowed to really interact with them. So we had to go to a side door and somebody else caught him and then he would bring him back after, the visit. And so, we're just weekly visits and court hearings. And then in the mix of all of that, one of the physicians says, hey, there's something's going on. I can tell from his physical appearance. I think he might have Down syndrome or Noonan syndrome and listed off all these other things that I had never heard of.
Right.
And so cool God story, though, is at the hospital when we picked him up, it was a family friend from high school.
Oh.
She was a pediatrician in her residency there. And so she is like, oh my gosh, I recognize this name. And so we get to see her and talk to her. And so I called her when we, some doctor was telling us about all these syndromes. I'm like, all right, what are you talking about? He's perfect.
Yeah.
I don't see anything. And so she told me, she said, the worst thing you could do is go home and Google anything. All he needs is love and we'll figure out the rest.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay. So that led into 18 months of genetic test after genetic test after genetic test. And everything kept coming back totally normal. Everything was negative. And so, and it was they sedated him for brain scans and they did blood draws. We were at the Children's Hospital all the time. Mm-hmm. All the time. And then it took us about 18 months because also genetic testing,
takes forever.
Yeah, you get the test and it's 3 months to wait for the result. So we're meeting with a geneticist as well at the time. And 18 months in, we finally get the diagnosis that he's got a chromosome microdeletion, which is a very rare.
Super rare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, CPS had to really advocate to get that to get Medicaid to cover that test, and amongst other things. He's got a few other diagnoses, but that's the big one.
So you were like, internationally, not going to adopt special needs kids.
And now
I'm fostering, which I wasn't going to do, and
a special needs kiddo.
Special needs kid.
Yep. And so, the Lord works in mysterious ways.
He does.
Yeah. So we are meeting with doctors and geneticists, and there's not a lot of research out there on it. And so we don't really know full prognosis and what it looks like. But
he's already beaten all the odds.
He is beating all the odds. Yes. They were saying, he may not walk because part of it is really low muscle tone, and we're not sure if he's going to be able to communicate very well. But that boy is bright. And
Dad comes running in church and giving hugs and telling us about his day and where he wants you to go. And
he's the most relational kid you will meet.
Yes, he is. So throughout his case, what did you start learning about the court process? Were there things that like really ticked you off? Were there things that you were shocked by, coming from I think everybody, at least I talked to, like in foster care, you just think there's like a logical, or in real world, there's a logical, rational way that things happen, and people do things because this is happening, so then this should happen. And then you get into foster care, and you're like, is this the Twilight Zone?
Mm-hmm.
And you get into the court system, and you're like, wait, am I being punked? Like, what is going on in this courtroom?
That is exactly how we felt. So we walk in. Again, we don't know what we're walking into. We just were told, like, hey, there's court on this day. You can come or don't. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
And so we show up. We wait forever. And then finally, when they call the case is done in 5-10 minutes. And the mention of the child is like so minimal.
Yeah.
They say, are his needs being met? Yep.
Moving on.
And so I think that was one of the biggest shocks, was that there was no mention of, like, if we're all meeting here for the life of this child, right? Why are we not talking about said child?
Right.
So, and it wasn't until, years down the road, but that part of my story, when I started to go, I went to work for CPS because I was going to go in and,
blow it up.
Yes. And be the best caseworker ever. And I'm going to change it all. I started to see a little bit about, behind the scenes and kind of learn why things are the way they are, but it's still, it feels like an injustice.
It is. I think it's one of the most frustrating points for multiple players in the system, for caseworkers. I mean, that was part of your, I'm here to change it, and I actually can't do this and keep my mental health and sanity, so I'm out. So many other caseworkers, that's their experience. Foster families, they get into it. It's not the kids, even all their hard behaviors necessarily. It's the courts and the system and all the ways that everybody's maneuvering to just win a court case, rather than this kid isn't a last name on a manila folder. This kid is a bouncy kid who has favorite foods and favorite superheroes and, loves his neighbor down the street and likes his school teacher. And you're just looking at him as this last name on a manila folder, and you can move him like an Amazon package. I think that's what ruins so many people in this space. Keeps them out of staying it longer, because it's just, you can't.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
Amen. Yes. Ditto.
So you get in, now you've got a kiddo with special needs that are ongoing and developing as he grows, and you've done all this, awesome trauma training. How did his behaviors, and just from not only, yes, you got him at 5 days old, but we all know that trauma happens in utero and is carried into, plus he's navigating this thing with, and then you had some other kids too along the way. But how did the kids' behaviors shock you or surprise, or your parenting abilities surprise you in the midst of all kinds of traumatic expressions?
Yeah, I could talk about this for hours. So for our youngest, for JJ, it was challenging too, because we would see, behaviors. It was hard to decipher what was like a developmental struggle because of his diagnosis, or was it because of trauma history. And that emotional regulation is really challenging for him. It is for any kiddo, I think, but, specifically really for him. And then for the other kids that we had in our home, we had, other 1-2-year-olds up to 8-year-old, 6-year-olds. I think as our journey went on, like I did a ton more trauma training. You know this, like I became a TBRI, trust-based relational intervention practitioner. And so I knew all these
You're
things.
The expert.
I'm teaching.
So it means it's easy for you in your house.
I'm teaching like I know it in my bones and I love it and I'm passionate about it. And then you have a child who it will just break your heart because they are literally flipping tables and breaking furniture and 2-year-olds.
Or running away.
Or like physically biting chunks out of your table, like your wooden table, or have like little teeth marks all over them. And so I think that the behaviors that I saw, those were really challenging because I knew what to expect. But then seeing several of our kids, but like one specific that I'm thinking of right now, like such a little person with he's walked through so many big traumas, and the way that his behaviors played out, like I have never seen a little guy with such big emotions not know how to handle them, because he's only ever seen big people handle them in really big, violent ways.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of help from counselors. Like we got all of our kiddos into counseling. I talked to them to help like with reinforcement, but it really challenged me.
Yeah, it is the way that in such a short amount of time, the amount of anger and like dysregulation in these tiny little bodies. Because 2-year-olds, they can't express themselves, and there's a level of frustration that we all know, 2-year-olds. But when you have these kids who have come from trauma and they've seen things and they've seen adults respond to the things, and then it is the most heartbreaking and most frustrating because you can't help them like process that, because they don't even have the executive function to be able to do it. And so most of the work is regulating.
Oh yeah.
When you think you're supposed to be like, I'm going to fix them, and like, actually, no, that just revealed a lot of my stuff that I did not know existed.
Yes. Yeah, it definitely reveals a lot of stuff going on inside of yourself. And like myself, the caregiver, it really revealed a lot of triggers that I had.
That you didn't know you had.
I didn't know I had, no. And so I will say, I think where I see most healing, like I see it in my home, but then also like working with foster families now, where I see the most healing is when the caregiver does the work on themselves, because that's when the magic happens.
Yeah.
Like if we can stay regulated and we work on ourselves and we're not looking at the child through the lens of our history, I mean, it's a game changer. We're able to be what's
so hard.
It's so hard. But then we're able to be what that child needs in that moment.
Well, that's like that quote that's like, you can't take somebody somewhere that you're not willing to go or have not already gone, because I can't help them out of their trauma when I haven't actually processed my own, which was another thing that foster care for me. I was like, wait, I didn't know that I had trauma but then you start thinking through things. You're like, oh, wait. Yeah, I can see where that would impact my relationships and my responses.
Yep.
So sliding back, you've mentioned this a few times, how faith played a role in your decisions and what you guys did. What was that? What was faith to you? Like, you grew up in the church? You didn't grow up in the church? What was that?
Yeah, I grew up in the church. My dad was a pastor all growing up, and so I was literally born into the church. So I know Jesus. I had faith. I know he's my savior. I know how to pray. I think I know all these things. And I have never in my life ever, I feel like I had walked through hard things, but I had never in my life had to like physically rely on the Lord's strength every minute of every day like I did when I was walking through foster care. And so it taught me a whole lot. Like like I said, we had walked through hard things in the past, but, it had been like, I'm going to pray and, maybe speak some scripture over this, and surely it's going to work out. Like, it's going to work out. But when you're on your knees daily, and you are praying hard and doing all the things, and the system is just smacking you. When I say this, like the court system is just like smacking you down over and over and over again.
Yeah.
It gets real hard. And so I felt like I was like clenching onto something like this control. This is a false idea of control, right?
Yeah.
And one day I remember like praying so clearly, like praying, and the Lord was like, you've got to release, like, I've got this. And so the best visual I have is one that I think you spoke to me to, again, many years ago. But you have this phrase that you always say, palms up. And so like that is something I would recite to myself because I would be like holding on for dear life. Like I got to control all the factors to make this happen.
Yeah, it's all on my shoulders.
It's all on my shoulders. And when I went like this and just released, I was like, like I can release and the Lord is going to work in magical ways.
Yeah.
Amazing ways.
I mean, that whole phrase comes not because I'm super wise, but because I walked through that. Like with my son, we ended up in court for, we had to hire an attorney. It was a whole thing, but it was actually from a Bob Goff book. And he talks about, he would tell the people when he'd have them go and testify that were really nervous, he's like, just sit it with your hands on your legs, palms up. He's like, just, that'll help you be honest. It'll help you to not try to think that you have to say all the things right. And so when I remember sitting in the audience of his court case and I was just like sitting like this and I had Bible verses written on my hand, but it was like, I have to stay palms up because my nature was like, I've got to protect this kid. Like I've got to manipulate all the pieces to make sure that he's safe. And that was just a very pivotal moment of like, no, even if I wanted to, I couldn't, I can't control all those things.
And it's funny too. Like I feel like I learned that. I would say I learned that walking through our first case, like with our first placement. And then I clearly forgot. And
we're going to do this lesson again.
Good. Yes. And so then with every other placement that we had, I feel like I had to relearn it again and again.
I just wish it would be one and done.
If I would just remember.
No.
Yeah. But I think like the most pivotal time for me, like the biggest thing for me when I it really came crashing down, I was working at CPS as a caseworker, and I had inherited a few cases, and one that was just really difficult and challenging and hard because of it was just a really challenging case. But then I was also assigned a case that hit really close to home, and it was children that had been physically abused in an adoptive home. So they had lived through unbelievable trauma with their biological parents, placed into a safe living home. And that struck a nerve because I'm an adoptive parent at this time, working as a caseworker.
And then abused again. In maybe even worse ways.
Definitely. Yes. Yeah. And so I remember, again, on my knees and just kind of wrestling and arguing with God at the time. Like, I don't know what else to do. Like, I don't know what else to do. And very, very, very clearly, he was like, you don't do anything.
I don't actually need you.
Exactly. Yes. And he said very clearly, I love these children more than you ever could. Mm-hmm. So you've got to learn to release them to me. And again, it goes back to the whole, like, I'm trying to control everything and carry the weight of the world on my shoulders.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Can't remember who I was talking to in here, but I was like, I think the Lord is like, hey, you have some issues with control, so I think we're going to lead you into foster care. I think it's like the guaranteed way for you to either like blow up or figure out how to let
release.
Go.
Yeah.
Because there's no middle grounds. You're going right or left.
Yeah.
So was that the moment that almost broke you with that adoptive home, or was there others?
When I worked as a caseworker?
Yeah. Or even in your home?
Yeah. As a caseworker, there were a few.
I remember that little guy that you brought to the office that one time who just had scars all over his body.
Yeah. We got a phone call for him. They were working on another placement, but they just needed a couple weeks to a couple months. And so we took him in, and he had, scars.
His whole body.
His elementary age kiddo had scars all over his entire body, like face and belly, feet, legs.
Yeah.
Everything.
Sadistic.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I think, again, learning in the system is you think people are not doing their job. Like a lot of people get so frustrated with the caseworkers, and yet they don't see the caseworker dropping the kid off and bawling their eyes out in their car because they don't actually have control either. Like the only person that, the Lord has control, but legally is the judge. The judge decides you go home, you don't go home. The caseworkers can present their best case. The foster families can do the best care. Like all of those things can play out. And ultimately the judge is the one that decides where these kiddos are going. And I think those scenarios are what leads to great caseworkers who care. They can't stay. Like because they can't sleep at night knowing I had to take them out of this loving foster home that would have adopted them. And I have to go put them back in this home that none of us think is a safe place, but we can't put any check marks off on why we would terminate the parental rights.
Yes. All of that. Before I became a caseworker, I was walking with a few friends through the foster care journey, and we didn't understand why placements weren't happening faster or things weren't changing. And I remember in training, I was in charge of moving a child, from a group home into a foster home, but we had to get so many different approvals. And so I'm like, it's easy on the outside looking in to shake your finger at CPS and be like, they're not moving fast enough. Yeah. But oftentimes they are spinning so many wheels and trying to get so many things connected. But yeah, that was the other thing too. Like as a foster home, a foster family, that caseworker comes in and it's real easy to take offense or be hurt or whatever because they don't remember every single detail to your specific case. Or maybe they seemed a little off this time. And it wasn't until I went to work for the state as a legal worker that I was like, man, we are carrying so much and dealing with so much. And yeah, that caseworker might feel a little off in your visit and you might take offense to it, but you have no idea what the past 4 hours looked like.
Right. Or that she just got home at 2 a.m. because she was picking up kids in some destination 5 hours away or dropping some off. And she hasn't even seen her own kids yet. And yet she's back on the job taking care of other people's kids.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, if you're a foster parent, be nice to your caseworker. You don't know. Like, you really don't know. And I was that way too. I was like just so frustrated with them because I think I assumed that they had more power and more ability to make things happen than they did. They were just like ultimately a cog in a wheel of a system that's really broken.
It's a great way to put it, a cog in a wheel. And I will say, like, where I worked, I was surrounded by a lot of really phenomenal caseworkers that they really went above and beyond. So it was really cool for me to see that behind the scenes. I had a phenomenal supervisor who supported us and really fought for us, an amazing attorney that worked with us. And the judge that I worked under, like, she was amazing. And she really did care, like, for the best of the kids. And she wasn't afraid to dig in and ask questions. But again, you've got to remember, like, they're making decisions for the kids' lives based on what everybody else is telling them. Right.
And a lot of times they don't have all the accurate information.
Yep.
Which is, even more, even that's where this whole, like, just sense of justice and all of us get in here and just get feisty about it because they're not getting all the right information and they're not making the right decisions.
Yes.
Yeah. So, let's see. I have a few questions I was thinking of. So, talk to the person who is saying, I could never foster. Because you were that person. You're like, I could never foster. So what would be your advice, your encouragement, your, wisdom now, decade down the line to that Maren, early 20s, who said, I'm not doing that?
My crazy friend over here, foster care. I would say do it. Put one foot in front of the other and go to the info meeting.
Yeah.
We were so... They
don't make you walk out with a kid, by the way.
No, they don't make you walk out with a kid. You just get to go learn about the system. And everybody needs to learn about the system. Everybody needs to learn what's going on in our backyards because it's not okay.
Yeah.
But as we were preparing for this, I was talking about it with my husband and I was like, we were laughing and then also having like a great little therapy session about all the ups and downs that we've been through, but how adamantly against foster care because it was so scary and foreign and almost like this taboo thing. Like nobody talked about it.
Right.
And so, but I'm telling you, like, just do it. Go to an information meeting because once you hear about it, I don't know how you could hear about it and not leave completely changed.
Yeah. Doing something. Maybe you don't end up fostering and that's fine.
And that's okay.
But seeing it and then like going on about life like you didn't just see what you just saw.
Yes. Yeah. When we worked at that first meeting with Linda, I remember like we were just, like I told you just beautifully wrecked by it all.
Yeah.
And it lit this fire in us where we ran through like nothing was going to stop us.
Yeah.
And we like started this process. And then I called you back and I said, hey, more people got to know about this. Like, help me. How do we do this at the church? Like, why aren't churches involved? I don't understand. Like, why is nobody doing anything about this?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is, and that's where you and I got to team up on the Alliance for a season and get to go out and talk to churches, and that has been it's turning and it's great, but we still need more laborers for sure. So I'm trying to think where I want to go. There's so many. You have so many different spots that I can go. Oh, this is one. So a lot of people talk about how it impacts their biological kids, or the kids they already have in the home. So you're 10 years deep in this. How's it impacted your girls?
Man, in the most, again, I would say beautifully wrecked is such a great way. In the most beautiful way. It has taught them compassion in a world that it is really challenging to teach. And they both see the world completely different. They don't see just a person or a behavior. Sometimes we do, right? Because we're human.
Right.
But I think when they look at somebody who might be struggling or acting out or whatever, like their first question is, I wonder what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's winning as a human. Like, that's just incredible.
Most adults don't do that.
No, definitely not. When we were in the thick of it, I will say, one of the most challenging things walking through having placements in the home with my biological kiddos was this idea of, like felt safety. And so, my girls would be like, well, why is so-and-so still acting out? Why are they still stealing? Why are they still breaking this? Why are we still doing, like, they've been here for 6 months. Like, they know bad things aren't going to happen anymore.
Right.
And so that whole concept was really challenging for them to walk through and really hard for me to
So explain that too. What's felt safety?
Yeah, felt safety is this idea that, yes, like we've taken the little guy out of the dangerous home he was in and placed him into our safe, loving home. We know X, Y, and Z isn't going to happen to him. Like we know he's going to get those 3 meals and a safe place to sleep and all the I'm going to show up to meet his needs. We know that, but his little body or her little body, they don't know that because internally their little nervous systems have been on high alert for so long because of the chaotic environment or unsafe environment that they've lived in. So maybe they didn't know if, so-and-so
friend was coming home that night, or
if
mom was going to show up at all for the next 2 or 3 days, or
or if so-and-so was going to come home.
Like that. The bear is always there. Like if there was a grizzly bear, we'd all be like freaking out, and their bear just doesn't go away, even when they're not in the forest anymore.
Yep. Yeah. So the littlest of things can set them off.
Yeah.
But it's literally just their biology at the time.
Right. And they talk about PTSD with veterans, obviously, which 100% they have. But for our kids, it's this complex trauma that leads to this PTSD that is also happening on a developing brain, which is even a larger problem because then it, develops these neural pathways, which are grooves in their brain. And so they just go there so fast, even when logically you're like, wait a minute, like we've had 3 meals a day every day since you've been here, but dinner's an hour late and they've lost it.
Yes. Yeah. Having children placed in your home that have lived in such chaotic and unpredictable environments. We had one that didn't have running water for I don't know how long. Mom had been running away from CPS. And so, but she also came with a lot of neglect. And so all of that trauma and all of that buildup, like it took us a really long time before we really started seeing changes. But she came into the home and like if our dogs were barking too loud, I mean, she was in she was 6 years old. She was in the fetal position under the kitchen table. Yeah. If my girls were arguing with one another, because that's what sisters do.
Right.
She was in the fetal position under the table because she was afraid things were going to start getting thrown.
Yeah.
Even one day we were in the kitchen and I was pulling out, I think like juice boxes or something. I don't know. And I love the lime Topo Chicos, but they come in a green glass bottle, which looks like
a beer bottle.
And so she saw that and she started screaming like I've never heard and just like covered her head and dropped to the floor. And so you have no idea what these kiddos' histories are.
No. It's like Pandora's box. It just starts unveiling itself. Yeah. And I think we see that like if you had a massive car wreck on cold, wintry night and it's ice and you're going over overpass. Well, it logically makes sense that the next time you're driving in a car going over an overpass that you're going to have this like anxiousness and anxiety, and because that was the last, you had this experience. But we don't appreciate that in our little people, and the fact that they, like you said, loud noises, and they're like, no idea what happened to her the last time there was loud noises or happened in her home, and you don't know that, and it's just kind of this like learning and then trying to be consistently creating new pathways of like, nope, green bottles Topo Chico, not a beer.
We're okay. Yeah.
We're good.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that we did not say that you'd like to say?
No, I think just the encouragement for people to take the next step and just to learn a little bit about it. Like, it doesn't mean, like you said, we're not going to send you home with a kid. But just take the next step, because the reality is that we still need a ton of foster homes. Like,
right.
I work on the private side now, and so we get the phone calls from CPS when removals are happening, and we have to respond to every single email that comes in. And for our placement coordinator who's in charge of that, when she has to respond and say, I'm sorry, we don't have any homes for this child or for this sibling group, like, it's just heartbreaking, and we need more homes.
Yeah.
And so if we can do it, if we can go from being so afraid and trying to control all the things.
So many control issues.
Yes. Starting international adoption, because that was the safe, predictable thing.
Right.
Saying no to special needs because we don't feel equipped to handle that.
Right.
To saying yes to a baby that we thought we were going to be able to, adopt in a few weeks, to a 2-year-long legal battle and genetic testing and a special needs diagnosis. Look, if we can do it, anybody can do it.
Listen, we are proof in the pudding that, this can be literally done by anybody. So thank you guys for joining us again for another episode of Running Toward. I hope this story has inspired you and encouraged you, and also maybe challenged you a little bit to take whatever it is that is your next step in just learning. Just go take a foster mom out for coffee, go to that info meeting, have the conversation with your husband. Just do the next step, and we'll see you again next week.